Welcome to the show, everybody. Lots of big news to talk about, including some really important pharmaceutical developments, as we might call them. Merck is now pushing into the emergency use authorization request phase a so-called COVID pill that they say, based on their trials, reduces the risk of hospitalization and death by about 50%. Now, my view on this has been that, politics aside, having an effective treatment in addition to a vaccine is a really great thing. There's a lot of people thinking about this in the context of the unvaccinated. Well, now the unvaccinated don't have to worry because they can take a pill if they get the virus, and it cuts risk of hospitalization and death by 50%. There may be people that are going to think about it that way, but not me. Let's talk about the developments, and then we will go from there. Merck says COVID pill cuts risk of death and hospitalization. In a potential leap forward in the global fight against the pandemic, drug maker Merck said Friday that its experimental pill for people sick with COVID reduced hospitalizations and deaths by half. If cleared by regulators, it would be the first pill shown to treat COVID-19, adding a whole new, easy-to-use weapon to an arsenal that already includes the vaccine. The company said it will soon ask health officials in the U.S. and around the world to authorize the pill's use. A decision from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration could come within weeks after that. All other COVID treatments authorized in the U.S. require an IV or an injection. A pill taken at home, by contrast, would ease pressure on hospitals and could also help curb outbreaks in poorer and more remote corners of the world that don't have access to the more expensive infusion therapies. This would allow us to treat many more people much more quickly, and we trust much less expensively. Merck and its partner Ridgeback Biotherapeutics said early results showed patients who received the drug molnupiravir within 5 days of COVID symptoms had about half the rate of hospitalization and death as those who received a dummy pill, the placebo. The study tracked 775 adults with mild to moderate COVID, considered high risk for disease because of health problems like obesity, diabetes, or heart disease. The results have not yet been reviewed by outside experts, the usual procedure for vetting new medical research. Among patients taking molnupiravir, 7.3% were either hospitalized or died at the end of 30 days, compared with 14% of those getting the dummy pill. That is a significant reduction. After that time period, there were no deaths among those who received the drug, compared with 8 deaths in the placebo group. This is one of those cases we've talked about before, medical ethics. When the test medication or procedure seems to be working so well, it becomes unethical to keep people on the placebo. And in fact, that's what they talk about here. The results were so strong that an independent group of medical experts monitoring the trial recommended stopping it early. Executives plan to submit data to the FDA in the coming days, and experts stress the importance of getting vaccinated anyway. So again, a lot of people hearing this and saying, we've been saying there's going to be a treatment of some kind. We don't need to get vaccinated. That's not at all what this is about. My thinking is the following math. This is a great additional layer in addition to vaccination. We've talked so much about, I did what was available to me. I went and got the vaccine. And yet it's not 100%. No vaccine is 100%. And immunity may wane, as is often the case with vaccines. We're trying to figure out to what degree and how much in relation to the mutations of the coronavirus. But we've done all those things, and yet we could still get it, and we could get really sick, and we could die. So what do? Well, here we have something that's an additional barrier. It's not something to justify getting no vaccine. Imagine that your risk of death is 90% lower with the vaccine. So, okay, let's say the overall infection fatality rate of COVID is 0.8. Why are we saying 0.8? Well, officially it's 1.6%, but we have reason to believe that the real number of infections is actually 2 or even up to 3 times the number of cases that are officially known. So that would put the infection fatality rate in reality somewhere between 0.4 and 0.8. Let's call it 0.8. Okay. So I get the vaccine. These are rough numbers. I get the vaccine, and let's say that reduces risk of death by 90%. I've gone now, risk of death wise, from 0.8 to 0.08. I've reduced my risk of death dramatically on an infection basis. If this pill then cuts it by 50%, you're talking about vaccine plus having the COVID pill if you get sick as two things together that would drop your risk of death to 0.04%. Now, for the unvaccinated, it also cuts it, but it remains 10 times higher. If you eliminate the vaccine layer of protection, the risk of death is 0.8%. If you get sick, you take the pill, that drops it to 0.4%. I would prefer 0.04% as my risk of death rather than 0.4%. That's just me. You can do the calculations you want, but that's sounding pretty good to me. So this will be submitted for emergency use. And by the way, I'm going to get ahead of one thing. There are tons of anti-vaxxers who have been saying, I'm not taking an experimental vaccine, who are already saying, look, the COVID pill, we knew it was coming. I don't need the vaccine because of the COVID pill. This is just as experimental in the sense that it doesn't yet even have emergency use authorization. If it gets it, it will have the status the vaccines have had for a year. Only a month ago or so, roughly, was the Pfizer vaccine actually fully approved. So if your reason all along for not taking the vaccine was it's experimental in the sense that it's EUA, emergency use approved, the best case scenario for the COVID pill that you might use to justify not getting a vaccine is that it would have that same emergency use authorization status. So these people are pathetic. We know that. This to me is not an alternative to vaccination. It's if you get vaccinated and you unfortunately get sick anyway, which is not super likely right now, but it does happen. Statistically, not super likely. Most of the infections are in the unvaccinated. You have another layer of protection, and that's a really, really good thing. One of our sponsors today is Blue Chew, a unique online service delivering the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis in a chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. And they're giving my audience an entire month's supply for free. So if you think you could benefit from an extra boost of confidence when it's time, all you have to do is take a short quiz on their website. A licensed doctor approves your prescription. The medication comes straight to your home within days in a discreet package. No driving around to the doctor's office or the pharmacy. No waiting around. No awkward conversations with your doctor. All of Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. The entire process is just a few clicks. Go to bluechew.com. The link is underneath this video. They'll give you an entire month's supply for free when you use the promo code PACMAN. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping.